Around It with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio, folks, as you come on and have your coffee with us. How you doing, Senator?
I'm doing marvelous. Thanks for asking, Maritza. It's feeling a lot like cold here.
Oh,
It snowed yesterday, and frost is on the pickup this morning, and yeah, it's a little bit chilly. Uh,
I'm not ready for it. I say that every year, but I'm really not ready for it.
and then, as long as we're on here, we're going to leave and go pick up that 1942 Series 62 Cadillac. And if anybody out there that's listening has any parts for them, there's a few parts we need, and we found out that. This is where you need to do a little more research. We found out that Cadillac made, like, I don't know, pick a number, 80,000 of them in 1941 and 1942. Since the war started, they made about 6,000 of them and then quit making them to make
Oh,
for the war. So parts are kind of hard to find, but once we get it fixed up, it'll be a real collector's item. It's in pretty good shape.
so
So,
my favorite thing is that this podcast serves multiple purposes. And one
yeah.
of those purposes is to find spare parts for John Tester.
Yeah, one of them, like my combine header. Now, it didn't come from this podcast, but I did. I actually got two headers. They weren't from this podcast.
Oh,
That doesn't matter. We had people who were calling in
they were
saying, "Hey,
trying.
maybe we can help you out," which we
Yeah,
appreciate.
they were
But
trying.
I've got
Speaking
to
of
go
the
get them, but I don't really need to. But what the hell? They were a paired bunch, so.
Hey, choose as good as one, right?
But my
Uh, y
guess is, when it comes to a 1942 Cadillac, there's probably a lot of people out there that have access to that kind of stuff, right? Everybody.
well, yeah, I mean, in my backyard alone, I have so many spare parts for a 1942 Cadillac.
Well, that's what I mean, but you don't have any the parts that we need, so.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you are getting speaking of the farm and headers and combines, you're getting a lot of praise for this op-ed you wrote about family farms in America. Wanna give us the gist?
Well, the
Because we're
gist
gonna
is
talk about farming today.
that the prices at the farm gate are in the sewer, and that's because of the tariffs, and on the other side, because of the tariffs, the costs for doing business, our input costs, are through the roof, and, that's a bad combination if you're trying to be profitable, and, there's a lot of to be honest with you, it's what happens when you hire a failed businessman that has a millionaire daddy backing him up on everything, because he doesn't understand how business works. And if you don't make a profit, you know, it ain't like we can do what he does, go to the court and sue somebody, because that's not how it works in rural America. It you end up with a lot of folks that are going to go broke this winter. And even if there is a taxpayer bailout here that will add to our debt, um, that's not any way to do business. People want to get their paycheck from the marketplace, not from a socialist government. And then on the other side of the coin, you're going to have people go broke regardless. And it's all because of bad political policy. In this case, the tariffs, which have been failed from the beginning, and they continue to be a failure, drive up costs with inflation for everybody, including farmers. But on the other side, with agriculture, we need those foreign markets. We raise more food than what we eat in this country. So if you don't have those foreign markets, you're done. So in the case of soybeans, which I don't raise any, by the way, it doesn't fit in my latitude. But in the case of soybeans, places like Argentina and Brazil are just licking their lips because they're filling the void of us not selling China anything. Here's the sad part, Maritza. This whole thing was started out by saying we're going to hold China accountable, which is, everybody can applaud that. It's the right thing to do. But what it's ended up doing is hurting our consumers with higher costs, and hurting our folks in production agriculture, taking away our markets, because they've done it with a meat cleaver and they haven't done it with precision and a plan. And it's ended up hurting the very people who support Trump, probably 95 to 5, and that's the folks in rural America. And so I wrote an article about it and talked about the impacts of these tariffs and what's this doing to family farm agriculture and what it's going to do to rural America. If you combine this to what they did in the big, beautiful bill with cutting medical support for our rural hospitals, it's a recipe for destruction of rural America in this country.
And then you add the issues with, migrant labor which Marjorie
Yeah.
Taylor Greene has been talking about, actually. We'll get to that. And then you add the bailout of Argentina, $20 billion bailout, when now all of a sudden China's buying their soybeans. There's a lot going on in this part of America. And we are going to talk to Representative Eric Sorensen today on our show. Not only does he sit on the House Committee on Agriculture, we'll talk about this, but he's also an actual meteorologist, like a former TV meteorologist who's now serving in Congress, which I mean, I never heard of that. I think he's only the second, but we'll talk to him about that a little bit later. But
You know
let's
what this
talk
means?
about what?
Your grandfather could have run for Congress. That's what this means, and he
Oh,
didn't do it.
I'm gonna have to read his book again because I guarantee he thought about it. I would
Cool.
be shocked if he never talked about that.
By the way, I
Um,
talked just a second before we move on. I just got to tell you, I talked to some people from Minnesota, and I talked about this weather guy that had a name that rhymed with something, and they said, you mean Barry? Was his name Barry?
Barry Zavan, the
Yeah, he
weatherman.
said Barry Zavan, and I said that's the one, and he said, "Oh yeah, man, everybody knew this cat." So that's your grandfather. Yeah.
See,
Sure.
you thought I was just blowing smoke up your ass.
Well,
Ke
I've always got to fact check you. There's just no doubt about that. Okay, so that's the way it
yeah.
goes. Anyway, go ahead. Talk about what we need to talk about.
All right, how about the shutdown? We're Tonight at midnight marks 2 weeks since we've been in a federal government shutdown. Speaker Mike Johnson's basically saying at this point, this could be the longest shutdown in history. We had 35 days in 2018, 2019. Now, the president directed the Pentagon to pay military. Great news for them. They've started laying off other employees, though, more than 4,000 so far across 7 agencies, about 1,000 at HHS. But then the Fed said, oh, oops, that was a mistake. They reversed some of those. Meanwhile, it's being reported that the special education staff within the Department of Education is decimated.
Yeah. Well, look. So the longest shutdown in history so far was during the first Trump administration, and that shutdown existed because the president wanted that shutdown to happen. I don't remember the reasons why it ended, but it ended probably
I
because
do.
of political pressure. Well, why did it end? Tell me what.
So, partly because of air traffic control and, safety in the skies, the FAA employees said, "We can't do this much longer," and it was over the border wall and money for the border wall, and Trump finally backed down off of that.
Yeah. So he wanted that shutdown. There's no mistake about that. He thought that was a good idea. It wasn't. He wants this shutdown. And when he thinks it isn't a good idea, he will tell his minions, Johnson and Thune. And by the way, I wish they didn't have to call them minions. I wish they could call them congressmen or senators, but they do everything he wants them to do. He will tell his minions, well, this is enough, so let's get a deal, and they'll have a deal. And but right now, Trump's loving this shit because he can fire people in government. He can take away people's trust of government. So then he can swoop in and say, "Oh gosh, see, democracy doesn't work, but I do." Yeah, we'll put some more tariffs on and run some more farmers out of business. Okay. Anyway, you get the drift.
I mean, this is hitting all of, across our country, across all departments. The transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, went out and basically said, "Hey, if you call in to work as an air traffic controller and because you're not getting paid, you're going to get fired." And I was filling in at scripts last week, and he was on the show. I asked him about this. I asked him about the messages that it's sending to federal employees, including the memo from the Office of Management and Budget that said furloughed workers might not get paid at all. He wasn't very happy with that. Oh, timeout.
Well, time out. I mean, you're as a news reporter, you're holding our public officials accountable. How dare you? You're asking them
Well,
tough questions. How could
he
you
was
ever
not
do that?
happy.
Huh?
He wasn't happy. I landed on his social media pages. That's all right. Meanwhile,
Well, I just want to say something before we go, and I very seldom give you compliments, but I will
oh
say
no.
thank you for being a reporter that wants to get to the facts to let people know what the hell's going on without worry of, oh gosh, if I ask them this question, the network's going to fire me. And you went after it. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Meanwhile, we have this whole thing. Last week, we had Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva. She was on last week talking about how she hasn't been sworn in. Guess what? She still hasn't been sworn in. It's been 3 weeks since her special election. She posted a message last night on Instagram directed solely at Mike Johnson, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and she said, "Hey, Speaker Johnson, listen to this. I'll be in DC Tuesday, today. So let's get this done." Think that's gonna happen?
No, because they don't want the Epstein files to go out. I mean, until they flip a Republican, and this is the whole problem with these guys. I mean, you're probably going to get into Comey and the rest of these guys here in a minute, but the truth is they're using the government as a political tool to try to run people or keep people from office or run people out of office or shut up their voices, and it is ridiculous, and it's not what the First Amendment stands for. And by the way, it's not what they ran on when they ran for office and got elected back last year about this time. They talked about openness in government, talked about getting rid of the deep state. And guess what we found out? They're the deep state. Unbelievable.
Well, we have to talk about the praise that the president and the administration is getting over this deal in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Israeli hostages finally being released on Monday. I mean, the videos are just incredible. So many videos of reunifications, and it's hard to imagine what that's been like for those families. Also hard to imagine what it's been like for these huge swarms of people basically moving back into Gaza City. I mean, just coming back to nothing, to rubble. So the question is, what comes next?
Yeah, that's really the question. How does this happen? How are they going to get folks together to help rebuild Gaza? Is the violence really over with? I, along with everybody else, gives the president big kudos on getting a ceasefire and getting the hostages out. I think that's due damn time. I mean, that this conflict for over 2 years. And holding Bibi accountable because Bibi's been a loose cannon from the beginning. So it's good, but in the end, I'm going to just tell you this: as somebody who has always been on Israel's side, the damage that's been done to Israel over all this crap worldwide
To
is never going to be it's never going to be fixed. I'll just tell you that they got a long ways to go because they have been an aggressor among aggressors, beyond the pale when it comes to getting even and hurting a lot of women, a lot of children, and but give the president kudos. We got the hostages out, the ones that were left, and
yeah,
and hopefully this is
and
the lasting piece. We'll see what happens moving forward. That's the acid test.
And now, we're hearing about aid moving into Gaza to help all those people. And, I think the president said yesterday it was already moving. I don't think that's quite true, but people are working on getting aid into Gaza because obviously there's a
They
lot of
need
need
it.
there.
Yeah, they need it.
Yeah. Okay, today is the day that Pentagon reporters are supposed to sign on to a new set of rules, basically, that says they can't gather or report anything that's not officially authorized. So basically, do their job gathering information.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ask that question.
ask tough questions. Report things you find out that they don't want you to know. The new rules required reporters to sign this pledge to keep their press passes. I think they have till 5 p.m. Eastern to do that. A whole bunch of news outlets said, no, we are not signing that, including Newsmax and the Washington Times. I think that's a big deal.
Uh, well, good. I mean, I think that's good that they're doing that. I mean, the truth is, just for the people's perspective here, this is the largest budget in the government. Its budget is as much as the other 11 appropriations committees, if they ever did their work, would be combined. And we're not supposed to have the press asking questions
Well, they can
because
ask
because
questions,
you've
but they
got a
can't
guy.
report.
Well, okay, can't report. Well, I mean, what the hell? Has a tree fallen in the forest? Does it make any sound if nobody's around? Okay, same thing. You can ask questions. If it doesn't get distributed to people, you don't have. Yeah, that's not reporting, and that's not an open society, and that's not being transparent and truthful and all that stuff. But I got my own thoughts about Hegseth, and I'm more happy to be wearing a hat in memory of him. So, or memory of the person they flipped. Uh,
Oh.
so,
We'll talk about that. Okay. We have to hop off in a few minutes, but I also want to talk about the possibility of invoking the Insurrection Act. We had the vice president this weekend on the Sunday shows. Heated exchange with George Stephanopoulos on one of them. I don't know if you caught that.
I
But then
didn't.
on Meet the Press, he said that the president's weighing all of his options when asked if he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act, basically, that would allow him to deploy military troops to U.S. cities, of course. He's already deployed National Guard troops. Most of those are being challenged in court. But I was listening, Molly Jong Fast yesterday was talking about this on a program, and she was saying the whole thing is giving McCarthyism vibes. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I don't remember McCarthy. Read some history on it. You probably do. I mean, you're quite a bit older than I am. Some people even
That's right.
called you old and rumpled, but we'll go beyond. Look, it gives me vibes of somebody who doesn't understand the Insurrection Act and why it was put into place, and what happens if there really is an attack on this country when they're making up attacks right and left. It all this stuff, quite frankly, isn't good for the country. It doesn't make America great again. If you want to stop crime, let the professionals do it. That's your police force. Help with mental health treatment for people because you've got a lot of folks out there that need that aren't getting it because of this administration. There's a lot of things far, 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 far short of implementing the military to go into towns, something they're not trained for, something that takes their eye off of what the real threats are from the outside world, which is China and North Korea and Russia, Iran, and deployed the military against your own people. It was said this weekend. It's interesting that Trump, he gets a peace deal with Gaza and talks about no more forever wars while he applies the military against our own people. And nobody's for crime. Everybody wants crime to stop, but it's not our military's job, and empower the police. These guys are the ones that say back the blue. Well, God damn it, back the blue. Empower the police to do their job.
Yeah. Did you see the videos out of Portland, what they're doing in Portland now?
I have no idea. They're picking up garbage or what? What are they doing?
No, the protesters, Portland's wacky. Portland's known for being wacky, and the protesters are going out in these inflatable costumes that look like dinosaurs, bananas, turtles, frogs, and they're dancing and they're calling it, what do they call it? Like the inflation, something about inflation.
Well, I don't know if they're wacky, but I know one thing. They got great beer and great wine there. I'm telling you.
Yeah. But no, Portland's a quirky city and they like it that way, just like Missoula. Keep Missoula weird. Okay, so that's kind of it. I'll send you the clip from George Stephanopoulos and the vice president. Basically, he cut him off. He cut him off and went to commercial mid-sentence. So, um, we'll see what that leads
Does
to.
does George work for ABC or CBS?
ABC.
ABC, yeah, well, George, it was nice knowing you, buddy. But yeah,
Okay, let's pivot now, and we want to welcome our guest today to Grounded, Representative Eric Sorensen, a former TV meteorologist senator. He's now in his second term representing the 17th District of Illinois in the United States House of Representatives.
Good to
Eric,
be you guys. Hi there, Senator. Good morning.
good to have you on, man. I like the springy background because it's starting to be winter here in Montana. At least it's feeling like that. So,
It's almost like something has changed here, Senator, because I have pictures from this very spot from 15 years ago, and all of those leaves would have been yellow and orange and brown. It's almost like something has changed. I can't put my finger on it.
well,
Hmm.
We might talk about that, but we got to talk about. Look, I don't run this show. Maritza does. I'm just here for the opportunity. But we'll probably get to that. Do you want to do that right now, or do you want to get the shutdown first, Maritza? So that's the question.
Either well, I think that's related. I do wanna ask
Climate
though.
change is related. Climate change is related to the shutdown.
Well, what I wanna ask him about is the National Weather Service related to the shutdown, because
Oh,
we're in the middle of hurricane season. We have a lot to talk about, but my
Yeah.
first question is this: how do you go, as somebody who has been in local news for a long time, how do you go from being a TV meteorologist to a member of Congress, and which industry is more dysfunctional?
Oh, that's hard. I'm gonna punt that one. I will
Okay.
answer. I gotta think about what the answer is first. So first
Okay.
things first, I, as a meteorologist, I worked in small market television. I didn't have dreams of going to Chicago or New York or LA. I mean, I worked in Lufkin, Texas, Tyler, Texas, Rockford, Illinois, and Moline, Illinois. That was my career. But the majority of that career that I had as a meteorologist, the only thing that I wanted to do when I was a kid, the majority of that was right here in this congressional district. Like I didn't want to leave. I put down roots here, and I kind of felt like, and I didn't know it at the time when I quit my job, right? I had to take that leap of faith. I looked through the filing cabinet and I pulled out my contract, and it was kind of like a, oh, beep, I can't believe that I could leave here. I could leave my job and run for Congress. See, I didn't want to be in Congress before my congresswoman announced on our morning news program that
Oh.
she was leaving, that she was retiring. Sherry Bustos was our congresswoman here for 10 years, for 5 terms. And, she did a really great job as a Democrat in a rural area of winning over and over and over again. And kudos to her, because over the years I was like, as someone who identifies as a Democrat, right, with these Democratic big D values, I'm like, she did it. She figured it out. Right? But then as soon as she announced that she wasn't gonna run, we had all of these politicians jumping in, and I'm like, "I don't think they're gonna be able to do it, nor do they have
Mm,
the reason of service." I kinda feel like I served the people when there was that tornado warning or blizzard warning,
right.
is the basement or when to get off the roads, and so why is it that Rockford, Illinois, and Moline, Illinois are in the same congressional district? Right? I couldn't answer these questions. Why we're going through a pandemic. We didn't have enough people speaking truth to science as we were learning it. And I'm like, there were so many things, and I thought to myself, I can't guarantee, this goes to your second question about the dysfunction of morning television. We all know fewer and fewer people are sitting in front of the TV. Everybody is going here. The thing that is worrying
Mhm.
me about broadcast news is the fact that we didn't learn enough from newspapers, right? We didn't learn enough that when the newspaper came to the front door every morning, people didn't have the time to read it in the morning, and then the newspaper went in a pile. Same thing for broadcast news and local journalism. Local journalism and the big conglomerates that now own it have got to figure out how to sustain it. Because if we don't have that local journalism, we're going to have lies run amok on this thing. It was
We
the same.
are.
It was the same thing that I was. Um, I was the person that was competing against this thing, right? Because
Ugh.
I'm like, I it wasn't just a 30% chance of rain, it was, I'm like, "This thing can tell you that there's a 30% chance of rain. I gotta tell you why there's a 30% chance of rain, or why right now in a completely overcast sky, it's not gonna rain," right? So, I'm like, I was explaining that why to the point where the people here, when I was running for Congress, they're like, "Oh, wait a minute. I like that guy. I can trust that guy," right? It wasn't that I said, "Oh, you can trust me." It was that I already earned the trust.
Yeah.
And and that's how, the people elected me in a 7-way Democratic primary. I was up against a Republican challenger who had done this earlier, trying to take out Sherry Bustos, and guess what? I got my seat in the Congress, and then
Incredible.
yeah, yeah. It was like one of those unlikely stories where I doubted myself through the whole way, but it turns out I didn't need that self-doubt.
No, well, that's why you won. Because the truth is, if you think that you get into a race and you're not going to lose, that's a big mistake. You can lose just as well as win. And I want to go back to something you said because I think it was interesting. You said that all these politicians got in, and you didn't think any of them could win. Tell me, you were right, but tell me why.
So here's the thing is I feel like I'm in this purple district that somebody's taken some red food coloring and there's a drop going into my district every year. Okay. So what we have to do, and I think this goes to testament, for instance, you, Senator, you figured out how to serve a state that maybe was getting 2 or 5 or 10 red roads, right? And you were able to do that for a long time, right? So here it's different, right? So I about 4 miles over that way is the headquarters of John Deere and Company. They've John Deere, this is the hometown of John Deere, right? But nobody is speaking to the farmers. Nobody, like I was the one that was on TV that was actually talking about climate change on TV. There were only 3 of us back in the day in 2008 that decided, oh, we need to be able to talk about this. And I was one of those. Thank goodness, right? But I earned the trust of the people to be able to talk with them. And I never talked about policy or politics. I said, here's the science behind it. And if this is a political issue to you, it's politics to you. But for me, I'm a meteorologist. I'm just going to give you what I know. Right. And so the farmers here, they get it. And I'll never forget at orientation after I was elected. Okay. You only get one orientation. And at breakfast, I'm an early riser. I get up early. So I was always at breakfast before anybody else. And I would sit at the table and you don't know anybody. And Republicans would come and sit down and I'd introduce them. I'm like, I'm from Moline, Illinois. This is not Chicago, right? I like to say I'm in eastern Iowa. And we got talking about weather, and I said, yeah, I was talking about you know climate change to farmers, and they elected me. That's so funny, Eric. You were talking about no, it's true. You can't tell a farmer that climate change is a hoax because they know you're lying to them. Pale. That's how you turn immediately these Republicans pale. But the next question was so interesting, Senator, because then they said, "How did you do that?" I said, "Yeah, I'll tell you how I did that. There's a plight. I was understanding what they were going through, and I wasn't using politics, as a you're with me or against me." And I said, "You guys got to figure that out because your farmers are going to turn on you." Simply put, and that's what we're seeing today. The farmers get it. They understand it. They're looking for policy now. They don't want bailouts. They want policy. They don't want aid. They want trade.
That's what they do when you agree with you, right? You put your finger on your nose. You're 100% correct. They don't want bailouts. They don't want the taxpayer walking in and saying, you know what? Because they're concerned about the debt. They're every one of them's a fiscal conservative. There's no doubt about it. They wouldn't be in business if they were free and easy with their money. Yeah, most of them. But at any rate, so you were able to get the rural folks to get on board, the farmers to get on board, and then you won. How much you win by?
So the first one was 4 percentage points. Okay.
Jeez, landslide. God dang. We
So
can
so
only
that's
we can only dream for those kind of margins. Yes. Keep going.
so I'll tell you, Senator. I used to have brown hair before this job. Remember me being the weatherman. I have brown right here. So here was the thing. So I get to Congress and I take my seat on the agriculture committee, not because I was a farmer, but because I'm like, I have to do this. Also, Sherry Bustos was very, very effective on the agriculture committee. So I'm going to continue to do the work that she did. Okay. And then I'm on the Space Science and Technology Committee, SST. We do some really cool shit with NASA and the National Weather Service and all of this stuff. I was an avid, right? So here's the thing. The farm bill is coming up in the committee. I never told anybody outside of our circle how I was going to vote, but I listened to the farmers and they wanted me to vote yes. And so, right, 2023, I I voted my conscience and I voted for my district and I voted yes on the GOP farm bill. That was a test, right? Because the people here that I was serving, they needed to have a proof point that I was here to do their job, did the job for them, right?
Uh, Yeah, yep, yep, yep.
And so, like, and I knew that this is going to take some work before it got to the floor of the House. But in the committee, yeah, there's enough here I can agree with. And so I was one of only, I think there were one, two, three, four of us, four Dems that voted for it. Right. Here's the thing is that helped create the friendship that I needed with our chairman, GT Thompson. I didn't have a cell number before that, but then I had the cell number of GT Thompson. And he's like, what are you going to need, Eric? And then we work together. And now with
Mhm.
our ranking member, we're working together so that we can get the shit done before the end of the year. Right. So it was that.
How's that going to get it done before the end of the year?
Well, we got to get the government open. I'm like, so here's the thing I tell farmers today. I'm like, the door was closed. Now the door's closed and locked. Right. So
Mm.
we need solutions, and there's no way to get a solution because right now only Thune and Johnson have the keys to open the door.
That's
Right.
right.
It's not us. I don't have a key to open the door. I don't have a key to start the government.
Yep. No, it's 100% correct, by the way. And we had a Substack call here earlier, and we've been in other ones too. The longest shutdown in history was the first term of President Trump. Trump likes these shutdowns, and he's gonna continue to advocate for this shutdown until he gets political pressure to stop it. And then he'll tell Johnson and Thune, fix it, and they'll fix it. They'll go and talk to the Democrats, and they'll get a deal because there's a deal to be had, a pretty simple deal to be had. But for these guys to stand on TV and say, you know what? It's not our fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. Look at the majorities in the House, the Senate, and who runs the executive branch.
Right.
They can talk. They can have one finger. Well, they can have one finger pointing at it. But the truth is, if they use this hand, they got three fingers pointing back at themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Anyway, congratulations on running a good campaign and congratulations on representing your district. That's the way it should be. There's far, far, far too much political bullshit going on in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
right now. Far worse than when I was there, by the way. Far worse. Everything's about politics now. Everything. And the people who don't think it's that way, just turn on your TV and listen. Because every move that's been made is about Democrats versus Republicans, or should I say, Republicans versus Democrats. Because Democrats got no stroke because they're
So help us take a peek into what's happening. I mean, I know you might be as in the dark as we are, but where are we? I mean, have you heard anything from your colleagues in either the House or across the hall of the Senate to say we are getting anywhere, or is it just? I mean, shake up a magic 8 ball and see what it says.
Right. So I will say, I think that we're standing on, on the right thing, right? It is healthcare. Because I mean, go back to farmers for a minute. They're buying their own healthcare. They can't afford it, right? Small business owners, they can't afford it anymore, right? If you want to start up a business, if you own the bar and grill down the street, you got to buy your own healthcare. You can't afford it anymore, right? And I hear that over and over and over again because here's the thing: is yeah, we may be fighting for the ACA extension, but it's a bigger thing than that. It's the fact that everybody's health insurance is going to go up by $200 to $300 every month. It's unacceptable, right? And guess what? The folks that are in charge and the majority, they ain't doing anything to help out people, right? And so it does give us something to say, here's what we are for, not just pushing back against Trump that we hate that guy. And I'm like, he's the worst president that I can imagine. It's not that, right? He is the president. I can hope that he does the right things and makes good decisions, right? And you know what? I give him credit for what's going on in the Middle East, right? But here's the thing is unless people get back to the table, unless people start negotiating, this is going to just continue down this rabbit hole and real people are starting to hurt.
yep.
Uh, and that's the thing. I mean, like, um, you know, I'm going back to Washington, D.C. about an hour after our call's over, right? I'm hopping on a plane. Um, will my Republican colleagues do it? Will I see anyone there? I don't know.
So you haven't heard anything both of you, I guess, Senator, you too. Have you guys heard anything that signals that there's even like backdoor phone calls happening?
Well, I certainly haven't. You, Congressman?
Mm-mm. No,
Yeah.
no.
Uh,
And I think go ahead.
well, I mean, I honestly believe this is all on the president. The president has, and no offense to you, Congressman, but the president has basically taken Congress and said, you don't exist anymore. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. There's going to be no oversight. There's going to be nothing done. It's going to put me in check with anything I want to do. And so it's the same thing here. And I think this thing doesn't end until President Trump says, you know what? Politically, this is hurting me. It's costing me votes. So Thune, Johnson, go get a deal. And as you've already pointed out, Congressman, there's a deal to be had. And it's a pretty simple deal. And it's a deal that helps small businesses and working families. And if they want to do it, they can do it tomorrow. They can do it today, and the government will be open by noon. But as long as they think this helps them politically, as long as Trump thinks it helped him politically, he's going to keep the government shut down, just like the goddamn tariffs. And we'll get into those in a minute as it applies to farm country. But those tariffs, man, I tell you, any other president, regardless of party, that had done what he's done on tariffs would have been, there would be tractors and combines and semis and everything else on the streets of Washington, D.C. protesting. But for
I
some reason,
You're right. How on earth is this president getting away with sending $20 billion to Argentina to bail them out, and is only just considering 12 billion for our own farmers? I mean, like, I can't believe that farmers haven't gone up to Capitol Hill and just dumped their whole load of soybeans right on Capitol Hill and said, "You deal with it."
are we ready to go into agriculture?
Go for it. You take it away. Take it away.
I don't know. Well, we can always come back to this stuff because
No, that's in the flow of the conversation. That's why people like our show is it's authentic and it's a real conversation.
there's actually a flow here. I cannot believe it.
Woo!
My kids, how far are you from Indiana?
From Indiana, it's about a 3-hour drive.
Yeah. So I was just in Indiana here 10 days ago. All right. 2 weeks ago. They were starting to cut soybeans.
Mhm.
And, we raise wheat and we raise some pulse crops here. We don't raise soy or corn where I'm at, located in Montana. And I know if you cut it, you usually have to have a place to put it after you harvest it. And usually, if you can haul it to the elevator, it saves you some money and cuts a few processes out of handling the grain several times. But here, the bins are all full and they put it in white bags. There's white bags all over the place, little silo bags full of grain because the market's been shitty now for a while. And it's gotten worse over the last 9 months. And when I was in Indiana, they didn't appear to have the kind of storage we have in Montana. There wasn't a lot of grain beds sitting around. And these guys, quite frankly, didn't know what they were going to do with their soybeans because they don't have a market right now.
Yeah.
They don't, they don't, they can't get rid of it. Okay. Now this is like having a restaurant and you don't have any customers. Okay. The same thing. This is farmers, they got no customer. Why? Because the customer they did have, the president's taken that customer away. And that customer mainly was China. Okay. And instead of buying soybeans from a farmer in Illinois or Iowa or Indiana, they're buying it from Argentina or Brazil. And so, can you give me a thought on what farmers are telling you out there on the ground? What they're saying?
Mm,
Because
yeah.
there's going to be a lot of them go broke. I'm just telling you, subsidy or no subsidy, there's going to be a lot of them go broke.
Yeah, they're running out of capital, right?
Yep.
Because of, several years of this going back to the first Trump presidency. Look, I think what was telling, there was recently an antique farm tractor uh, auction out in Iowa, record breaking. They've never seen so many tractors getting auctioned off. That's the last piece of capital that a lot of these farmers have. They have their grandfather's, Oliver tractor or John Deere tractor. And it's incredibly sad. One thing is, when you picture, I think anybody who's, on this podcast, when you picture a Midwestern farm, you've got the farmhouse, you got a couple of barns, and you got a silo. Well, guess what? Those silos don't exist, right? Farms don't have silos because we've got the big, huge grain elevators that are in town that are attached to the railroad. Okay. That's where farmers go and they take their, truckloads of soy or corn. They send it to, the big grain elevators. The grain elevators are full. And we don't have a place to put them because there isn't a silo on your farm anymore. It went defunct. And so now it's going to take better policy. It's not going to take a bailout that's going to make that whole. And they know that. The thing is, the Republican Party and Donald Trump, they're not spending any time on a farm. They're not out here understanding what they need. They're like, oh, well, we'll just give them some of the tariff, money back, and we'll pay them off, and then we'll get their vote. That's not how it's going to work. Not unless we open up export markets. One of the things that I've been working on is our lock and dam system on the Mississippi River. Holy cow, it's from the 1930s, you guys. It's been piecemealed together. You gotta bust up your barges because the locks are too small. We need to at least double them because every other country is invested in it. And I'm like, if we could do that, we could export crops faster. We could get them to market faster. Those are the types of things that like I look and say, all right, those are the things that we can help agriculture and help skilled labor to build these things. Why aren't we doing that? If they want to put America first, why aren't we investing in America? Why are they spending $20 billion on Argentina, for God's sakes?
That's
Who's the president working for?
that's a really an interesting point, and you're absolutely right on the Argentinian message. And I will go one step further. We passed an infrastructure bill that was the largest investment in infrastructure since the year I was born, which was 1956. And what the president's doing is pulling money out of Democratic districts and Democratic communities, even in a state like Montana, by the way, and giving us the middle finger and saying, you know what? Because you have this philosophy, and he's got his own definition of what that philosophy is, we're not going to do anything with your infrastructure. That is a recipe, by the way, not to make America great again, but to take this country down and make China the greatest economy in the world. And that's a fact. And all these tariffs, what they're doing to agriculture, which has been incredibly important for the economy of this country, for food security in this country, he's turning the keys over to China. Okay.
I mean,
So
the guy Trump just took $54 million out of clean energy products that money was already supposed to come to my district. It's not to
yeah,
this $54 million from my district was taken away. As everybody's energy prices are going up, and they all talk about, oh, we need American energy. No, they say one thing and then they do something else. That's what happens over and over and over again. Nobody's taking care of an energy product because you know we a lot of people give me flack sometimes because I'm like, on my campaign logo, I got a wind turbine, and somebody this was great. You'll appreciate that. The very beginning, oh, Sorensen is just this, Green New Deal guy, which I'm not, right? And I'm like, he's got the wind turbine, and I'm like, you people have never talked to a farmer. Farmers need to have the wind turbine that covers that much of their land because when they get a bad crop, when they got a drought or a flood or a derecho knocks all their corn down, you need to make money. They're going to make money off of that wind power that they're
yep,
selling back. And I'm
yep.
like, you people don't get it because you're just stuck in this Washington, D.C. bubble.
And they're sucking the Washington, D.C. bullshit too. And they're sucking a lot of bull, telling
Yeah,
you.
and power bills are rising twice as fast as inflation, and
Yeah.
they ain't doing anything about it.
And you want to talk about increasing the amount of energy in the grid, which is the key to lowering prices. This administration has taken all solar and wind off the map. So what are we going to do? We're going to build a gas fired plant so we have the juice in 5 years from now. No, they need it now, especially with these data centers that want to go in. That will create jobs and employ people. But oh no, we don't want to do the cheapest energy that's out there. We don't want to do that. Why? Well, because maybe the other party is that would help them. Well, bullshit. Good policy helps everybody, right? Good policy makes for good politics. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. That's why bad policy makes for bad politics. And this tariff stuff is bad, 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 bad policy.
I couldn't
Now
agree.
I know how your dog feels when he gets something off the counter. Bad, 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 bad.
Yeah, I don't kick the dog, okay, just so you know.
I didn't say kick.
Oh, dude, let's not bring up Christy Nome now, guys.
We'll
We
one
just
hat at a
you
time.
you
Sorry.
know, we need to have you back on because we tee you up and you just take it. That's
Take it
great. I
well,
love it.
I wanna refer to you just real quick, Maritza, if I might, since we're talking about
Go
a
ahead.
meteorologist, since you don't know this, her grandfather was a meteorologist, the Barry Zavan, a weatherman in Minnesota, was her granddad. Big time.
Oh, no way.
He's in the Weatherman Hall of Fame. I mean, he was huge, huge. Anyway, I read occasionally. I don't read very well, but occasionally I'll read the opinion letters of the editor. And there was one in a newspaper in Montana that said, "Look, guys, climate change, don't worry about it. Tell your grandkids to go out and fish because climate change doesn't exist. I haven't seen anything that makes me think that climate change is real." I gotta tell you pointed out earlier, farmers are the tip of the spear when it comes to climate change. I can tell you, we've been on this farm for nearly 50 years, and I've seen shit happen the last 50 years that never happened when my grandfather and my parents had this place, especially in the last 20, quite frankly. So, so what do you have to say to a person as a former meteorologist, as a recovering meteorologist? What do you say to a person who says climate change just doesn't exist? I haven't seen any examples of it.
Yeah, so I went to Boulder, Colorado to the National Center for Atmospheric Research. This is probably about 20 years ago, right at the beginning, as I'm trying to figure out how I'm supposed to uh, dis communicate this on TV, right? And so I, um, I gave everybody, all the other meteorologists that went to this conference, I gave them all hell because I took the train and they all flew. So it was great. And then I get there and I'm in front of Nobel Prize winning climate scientists. And I said, "How do I explain it?" I'm like, "There's so many people, even my father-in-law, that's like this. You can't make me. Yeah, I'm not going to believe any of that bullshit." The answer was so succinct. They're like, "Eric, you're the conductor on your railroad. You're at the train station. People have bought the tickets. You're punching the tickets. Welcome aboard. Punching the tickets. Welcome aboard. Punching the tickets. Welcome aboard." And you got one person that's left on the platform that says, "You can't make me get on your train. I'm not going to get on that train. I'm just not. No, no. You're not getting this ticket. You're not going to punch this ticket. I'm not getting on." How long do we delay the train for the one person? How long are you going to piss off all the people that got on board when they're looking out the window at me arguing with that one person? Sometimes it's okay to say, "You know what, sir? I wish you well. I hope I see you down the line somewhere, right? But I gotta move on." And ever since I heard that, it's not worth it getting into the punching bag of this issue or even the punching bag of politics today, right? If you don't agree with me, I wish you well, but I'm gonna move forward with all of the other people. And that's the way that I've always thought about it, and now I use that in many different ways. And now that I'm a member of Congress, people will come up to me and they'll be like, you know, I see where you were coming from." They may not overtly just say I was wrong, but now they'll at least say, "Hey, I know where you're coming from. There's a difference."
So what you're saying is you need enough votes to win, but you don't need all of the votes. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be differences in opinion, right? And I'm like, that's great. I love the fact that this is the most purple district in the state of Illinois, right? I am going to be the bellwether. Um, because, you look at my district and yeah, I got Rockford and Moline and Peoria and Bloomington, but I have almost equal amounts of rural area in between those 400,000 people cities.
I
So
got
there's 400,000 people that are in those cities and there's 350,000 people that are outside the cities,
I
right?
got
We're going to need to figure out how we do the best for everybody.
Okay,
now
I wanna talk
that's
about
a really
weather a
good
little bit more. First
Okay.
of all, I'm gonna guess that Missoulian and Nobel laureate Steve Running was one of the climate scientists
Yeah.
in that crowd, 'cause he's pretty amazing. But let's talk about, we know the difference. There's climate change and weather. They're 2 different things. So let's talk about right now. With this government shutdown, let's bring it back full circle. we've already seen the cuts across the federal government with the Doge cuts, and people were really worried about what that might mean for preparedness and alerts and the things that we as citizens probably take for granted and rely on these warnings and alarms and sirens to go off when something's heading our way. What about like what's happening right now with the government shutdown? And we're right in the middle of hurricane season. Where are we with preparedness? What should people know?
So I go back to when, Elon Musk had his hands on everything and he was like, this guy, I'm waving my fingers like I'm Dr. Evil. Um, so, so here's the thing is at that time when they were starting to fire all of these National Weather Service employees, I'm like, what can I do as a member, right? Am I going to be able to put forth legislation that's going to be signed by the president? No. But I did find a friend in Rep. Mike Flood of Nebraska. Okay. Obviously, Eastern Nebraska, you get a lot of tornadoes. He understands how important the National Weather Service in Omaha Valley is. So, so he's like, yeah, Eric, let's work on something. And so, our bill classifies, the NWS employees, much like TSA, they're going to be, officially, there. They're going to be essential. And so, guess what? As soon as our bipartisan legislation hit the floor, all of a sudden, Donald Trump and Elon Musk changed their mind because all of a sudden now there's Republicans signing on to it. Because yeah, the National Weather Service isn't political. We need to make sure, Frank Lucas in Oklahoma, he gets it, right? He was like, "Yeah, I'll sign on to that. I'll help you out there." And now going forward, thankfully, they have hired back some of the people that were fired. Um, and those things are important because now in a government shutdown, we're asking all of these folks to work without pay. And nobody should be asked to work without pay because the politicians can't do their job.
Do you think it's affecting the work? I mean, I know that they're worried about air traffic controllers calling in sick. Are you worried about that at the National Weather Service? Because I gotta say, like, it's a grind. It's a stressful job, and if there's no guarantee you're going to get paid in the next however many weeks or months.
Yeah, I mean, so I look, I mean, thankfully, in the Midwest and for much of the country here, this is quiet before we start getting into the blizzard and snow systems of December, January, February. But like certain NOAA websites, they're down. They're, social media channels, they're not being updated. You know, only those things that are necessary are being maintained. I met with a lot of the hurricane hunter folks that work in the Air Force Reserves, and I thanked them all. This past spring before hurricane season. Well, now they're going to put their life on the line, fly into these hurricanes without getting paid. And now the government isn't going to spend as much for these reconnaissance missions. And so it means that, if we get a hurricane to have the cone into the United States, there's going to be more error in those forecasts, putting more people at risk, you know, and we can't allow those things to happen. Those are nonpartisan things. Why are we letting those things happen? TSA agents that are working to keep us safe. I'm going to go and, thank every one of them that I see at the Quad City International Airport this morning because they're going to work without pay. And on top of that, Christy Nome, have you guys seen this? Christy Nome has a new video that's going to be displayed at the TSA saying it's Democrats in Congress. They're the ones that are causing you to feel the pain and these TSA people to work without pay. It's absolutely bullshit that she would do that, violate the Hatch Act in every airport in the country that is going to display that. It's just absolutely atrocious that is no ethical boundary left in this
That,
administration.
that ethical boundary needs to be enforced by the courts. So where the fuck are the courts at?
Right. And so we're going to need to file lawsuits. In fact, I'm leading a charge now, Senator. When I get back to Washington, we have a letter that's going to go out, and I hope that we'll get just as many Republicans to sign on to the letter as we do Democrats.
What's
That
that letter say? What's the letter say?
basically that Christy Nome in the Department of Homeland Security has no authority to put that message in front of the American people. That is a political message.
Violent,
By saying
violent.
that it's just Democrats that are causing this problem. If she went up there and said the dysfunction in Washington is causing you to have a bad experience, yeah, that probably would be fine. But saying that it is political, that's a violation of the Hatch Act for every instance that that's displayed.
Mhm.
And
I did see though.
it's more on her than it is on the Democrats. She's part of the administration. She can help stop
Right.
this.
Again, I yeah,
She
I
is
go
the
back.
reason for the season of government shutdown.
I go back to, the point I made earlier, like, I don't have the key to open up the door. The only people that have the keys are Mike Johnson and Senator Thune, right? They're the only ones that have the keys to unlock the doors. So you can't blame Democrats here.
Well, they
Did you
can't
just say that Kristi Noem is the reason for this season?
of government shutdown of
Oh,
government shutdown season. Okay,
okay.
one of
I
it's one of the okay. She's got her seat right next to the president. Do you think she's telling the president? First of all,
I can I
I
can
don't think
see
it's
the
about her one iota. Okay,
I can see the Christmas ornaments now.
Instead of Noel, it says Noam.
Okay, I just have to say that there are some airports pushing back. Seattle, I think Portland, Charlotte, Vegas, they are not airing that. They're not displaying that. But I know that you have to get on a plane, Representative Sorensen. This has been a great chat. We would love to have you on anytime. I mean, I know John likes just talking about farming with somebody because I have nothing to offer in that realm.
I have that's false, but I have a question. I have a request for you. Okay, when you get on the floor of the house,
Yeah.
you start talking about meteorology and meteorologists. Could you bring up Barry Zavan, the weatherman, just as a point of reference? And it'll make Maritza very proud. See,
There he is. There he is.
there's the man, Barry Zavan, the man.
There's a van, the weatherman.
That's that's
Uh,
that's so cool that that's, a part of, like, your family's history too. Like,
Thank
in
you.
fact, I'm good friends with Paul Douglas. Now, Paul
Oh,
Douglas.
they were close. They were good friends. Yeah.
Oh, so there you go. So Paul Douglas was at WCCO Channel 4, and, and I got to know him early in my career, and we touched base. So I'll have to bring, you know,
Oh,
them up.
but Barry, I mean, he was eccentric and quirky, but yes, everybody in Minneapolis has a Barry story, and Paul is amazing. We talked about agriculture. Now he has to hear us talk about meteorology, but Paul has done amazing things. I mean, like just transformed the way that we predict weather. It's just been incredible what he's been able to do, kind of as a side hustle.
The last thing that I want to bring up is the fact that, like, without meteorologists, like, pushing themselves, like, we're not innovating, right? If we're not pushing ourselves forward, we're not innovating. Like, and through this job, I get to go on some amazing congressional delegations to other countries. The thing that Americans don't realize right now is we're handicapping ourselves. The rest of the world is pushing forward. They're innovating. China is innovating faster than any other country right now. And this administration is just, they're holding us all back. It's not about putting America first in anything. They're holding us back in everything. And
About put
God, that's
um,
got to change, because I don't know how long we're going to be able to go. Because, we're the most powerful country in the world, and we're going to dip down by so many different ranks. And there's no matter who you are and what political party you are, you gotta understand that that's a bad, bad thing to do.
yep. Not we are dipping down, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's happening as we speak, and it's going to continue to happen as long as we have an administration that's not fully in tune with what's going on in the world and this country.
So I will tell you, any meteorologist that's listening to this podcast, Eric at ericforillinois.com, I will give you all of my secrets. Because I will tell you, being the first meteorologist in 50 years elected to the US Congress, right? I feel like I went through a jungle thicker than what's behind me on my deck, right? And I went with the sharpest knife, and I'm just hatcheting away to create a path that I didn't even know was going to work. But now that I'm in Congress and I realize Meteorology is more important than a poli-sci class because guess what? Meteorology, you understand what service is to your community. You understand how you take care of them. You understand you go back after the disaster and you say, how can I help? Um, Now we need other meteorologists who have earned the trust of the people to do this because I look back at that path. I don't want that path to get overgrown before the next person walks on it.
Oh my
That's
god, we're gonna see Congress overrun by meteorologists. Look at this. I like it. The uprising.
nerd alert.
Nerd alert. Hey,
No,
big nerd right here.
I just want to tell you, and Eric, and this is not being critical of you, but meteorologists don't get it right all the time. I mean,
No,
Oh, we've
no.
heard that joke before. We've heard that joke before.
it's,
You
it's
know what
not.
I complete that joke, Senator, by saying, "Oh yeah, I had the only job where I got paid to be wrong every day, and now I went to Congress because nobody's expecting them to get anything right there."
Well, ain't that the? Well, I'll tell you what.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's been a pleasure to chat with you. We appreciate you, sir, and I hope you'll keep us informed as to what the heck's going on back there.
Right, and anytime you guys wanna take the show on the road, I mean, like, we could go to John Deere Commons right downtown Moline.
Oh,
We could sit on tractors and do the show, you know?
well, Chester does sit on a tractor sometimes while we do the show. That's truth.
Yeah.
And he told me because I sat on a John Deere tractor in a museum a few months ago, and I sent it to him, and he said the green ones are the expensive ones.
Green for a reason. You gotta have a lot of green to make that purchase, I'm telling you.
But I'd like to go see John Deere.
I think they make a hell of a product. I'll just tell you that. I think they all make a hell of a product,
You
and
know,
the problem is right now is farmers can't afford to buy anything. As you pointed out already, they're selling off things that have been in the family for generations just to try to make the ends meet. It's a sad, sad state right now in this country, and if it doesn't change, it's going to get a lot sadder.
right, and we're seeing that here in East Moline, Illinois, where Harvester Works is, where every John Deere harvester is made. We're seeing those folks, at the plant get laid off. It seems like every year you get ready for another layoff. And, when I look at how we're going to fix that, we need to put more money in the pockets of farmers with good policy. And nobody is doing that right now. We
Right.
need to fix that because that means that the UAW workers that are on the line in East Moline, they're going to have a future. Their kids are going to have a future there. John Deere is going to have a future as one of the most recognizable international American companies in the world, right? And I'm like, if we don't do something, um, then those are going to go away. I don't want a foreign country to buy John Deere. I don't want hedge fund manager to buy John Deere. No, 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 no. No. The Americans that buy the stock in what John Deere builds, they own the company. John Deere moved to Moline, Illinois in 1832 because he invented the steel plow and he needed a water wheel on the Mississippi River to move the parts to make the steel plow. It runs deep in like our DNA.
Mm,
And
mhm.
so if we can never ever give up on that. I always say, when I talk about climate, for instance, like, I'm a guy that understands we have a climate crisis, but you know what? Farmers, they don't want a Green New Deal. They want a Green New Tractor.
I think okay, first of all, let's take this show on the road. I would love to come down there, but second of all, this has been the best Minnesota goodbye ever. You know what a Minnesota goodbye is, Senator?
Yeah.
It's when it takes a long time because we keep talking as we're leaving, walking out the door. But I hope we can stay in touch, Representative. I would love to, you know,
Yeah.
stay in touch about all of this stuff.
Anytime, you guys. It's an honor to be on the show. And Senator, thank
Okay.
you so much for your work and continuing to use your voice. Man, we need it. We need it now more than ever.
Yeah, thanks, man. We'll continue on. You keep doing your policy from a meteorological standpoint, from a weatherman standpoint. How's that? I feel like
Yeah.
Trump say Tylenol.
Is that acetaminophen?
I
Um,
answer I answer to anything. If you My mom used to call me by the dog's name and I'd answer. I'll answer to anything.
it's all good. Anyway, good to have you on. Take care. Be well.
Safe
Stay well.
travels.
Senator, thank you, Maritza. Good to see you.
You
Bye-bye, everybody.
too. So we have a lot to talk about for next week. We also have to get going, but tell me about your hat, Senator.
Well, it's a hat from Iowa, and it just states the obvious. We're all gonna die. That a senator from Iowa had said during a all meeting that probably wasn't appropriate when she said it. It probably wasn't a good answer to a question about why they were cutting healthcare for rural America. And somebody gave me this hat. I can't remember who it was. I guess well, maybe it was you. So I figured after wearing the Green Bay Packer hat last week, I've got to get back into good graces.
Even though it's Packer colors, but that is my bad. I bought it for you because there is a store based out of Iowa called Raygun. And I love this store. It's hilarious. And it's all political messaging, not all, but a lot of it. And so they put up this hat that said, Iowa, we're all going to die. And I thought, I need to get that for Senator Tester for his birthday. So there we go.
Well, thank you very much. Happy birthday.
Um,
Thank you for the gift.
Happy birthday to you. Okay, so next week we have a few shows. We are going live with Sharon McMahon, America's government teacher, on Wednesday. I'm very excited to talk to her.
So
She is just
why is she called America's government teacher? Tell me.
She has this following called the Governords. And basically, she explains civics, how things work, news stories in ways that are really simple to understand. She goes back, she unravels things that are complicated, and she answers questions. And so she really teaches like basic civics, but in a fun and entertaining way, and also succinct. Like it's easy to consume. And so more than just teaching about things, she has she has done just incredible public service because she says, hey, this person has this medical debt. We'd like to pay it off for them. How much money can we raise, governored community? And they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to send to this family or that family when they're hit with tragedy. It's really an incredible community. I'm very excited to talk to her about everything and how she stays sane through all this. And then next Friday, we are live with our friend Heather Cox Richardson on Substack. So this is like a dream week for me. Like two strong, smart, incredible women that I look up to greatly. And you.
Oh, no, no. Get out of here. So I look for. I mean, I look forward to. Is it what was it Aaron Parnas that said the biggest mistake we made in this country is not teaching our kids civics?
Yeah.
And that's I agree with that, and I've actually used that line, and I haven't agreed to him, and I should have, but what the hell? And then so it'll be good to hear from Sharon McMahon, and then Heather Cox Richardson is a superstar, and
Always.
to visit with her regardless of what. But chances are, by in 3 or 4 days, the shutdown will not be solved. I hope it is, because
Yeah.
if it talk about how it got solved. If it isn't, we'll talk about why this is so screwed up, among other things. Moving forward.
And we can also talk next week because the next time, unless we have a surprise, a surprise show, which does and can happen. But the No Kings protests are this Saturday, so we'll see what those look like. Okay, you can find us on Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. You can shoot us an email at groundedpcast@gmail.com. We are so grateful for this community. It only works because you're here with us. And we want to thank our guests, Representative Eric Sorensen, our friends at Pearl Jam for letting us use their music, and of course, all of you. We'll chat again soon.
We hope.